I belong to him. That's what my lover said to my husband, with my name still burning on his tongue. Do you know what it feels like to stand between two men who both claim you, as if you're some prize they've earned, or some secret they've stolen? It's not the heat of passion that suffocates you in that moment. It's the silence after the words land. The silence that shreds your chest because you know what comes next will break something you can never repair. But here's the part that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I didn't even deny it. Instead, I watched my husband's face go cold, like a curtain falling across a stage, and I realized that the person I had loved for years, trusted, promised, built my life around, wasn't going to fight for me. He was going to watch me burn. We'd been married 7 years. 7 years of routines, of inside jokes, of coffee left on the counter with little sticky notes that read, "Good luck today, sweetheart." 7 years of knowing the smell of his shirts, the sound of his footsteps on the stairs, the weight of his arm across my waist when he rolled over in the middle of the night. And yet, 1 year of stolen glances and late-night whispers with another man was enough to unravel it all. The crazy part? My lover wasn't supposed to say it. That wasn't part of our secret language. He was supposed to stay hidden in the shadows with me, tucked into the corners of stolen hours and unsent messages. But desire makes fools of us all, doesn't it? He looked at my husband as though my husband had never really existed and claimed me. Claimed me like a treasure, like a curse, like a mistake he was too drunk on love to regret. Only, he did regret it. The very next day, but by then the damage had already been done. Let me take you back. It was a Friday evening, the kind where the house smells like garlic butter and my husband is humming off key while opening a bottle of red wine. I should have been wrapped up in that comfort, in that ordinary beauty of home. But my phone buzzed. His name, my lover. Just a single line. I can't wait anymore. I should have ignored it. I should have let the phone burn in my pocket and stayed by the stove, nodding along to my husband's chatter about his day. But I excused myself, pretending to fetch the laundry, and whispered back a reply. That was how it always started. A simple reply, a hook, and then hours of unraveling myself into someone else's hands. By the time I returned, my husband's eyes flicked to my phone, then to me. He didn't say a word, but my stomach dropped. He knew. Not everything. Not yet, but enough. The confrontation came later, after the dishes, after the forced laughter, after the clinking of glasses had faded into silence. My husband asked me to sit. His voice was calm. Too calm. He looked at me as though I were a stranger who had wandered into his home and sat at his table. And then he said it. "Who is he?" I froze. My lips parted, but nothing came out. And then, as if summoned by my silence, my lover walked into the very room where he did not belong. He was supposed to wait. He was supposed to respect the walls we had built around our sin, but he didn't. He stood in the doorway uninvited and locked eyes with my husband. And before I could breathe, before I could find the words that might save or damn me, he said it. Those 4 words that split my life clean down the middle. She belongs to me. I swear the air left the room. My husband didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just stood there, his jaw tightening, his hands curling at his sides. And I sat frozen between them, torn open, every secret stripped bare under the weight of that single reckless claim. That's where it began. The moment everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself shattered. And if you think the story ends there, if you think my lover's boldness was the height of it, you're wrong. Because the next day he showed up trembling, pale, desperate. He begged me to undo the words he had thrown like knives into my marriage. He said he hadn't meant them. He said he wanted to take it all back, but some words, some wounds, can never be taken back. When he knocked on my door the next morning, I almost didn't answer. My husband had already left for work. His silence at breakfast said more than words ever could. No good morning, no brush of his lips against my cheek, no soft touch of his hand on my shoulder. Just a cold presence, then an absence, and then came the knock. Firm, insistent, a sound that rattled through my bones because I already knew who it was. My lover. I opened the door only halfway. My body angled as though I could hide him from the street, from the world, from myself. But his eyes found me instantly, wide and restless. Not the eyes of the man who had claimed me so boldly last night. No, this was a different man. His face was pale, his lips drawn tight, and the first words out of his mouth weren't passion but panic. I shouldn't have said it. His voice cracked. God, I was stupid. I shouldn't have said you belonged to me. I just stared at him, my hand still clutching the edge of the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. You don't understand, I whispered. You didn't just say it, you meant it. His breath hitched, his shoulders collapsing as if the weight of his own words was too heavy. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing on the porch. I meant it in the moment. But your husband. He looked at me like he could kill me. Like he could kill you for letting me say it. I should never have. Stop, I hissed, stepping outside, pulling the door shut behind me. Don't say his name. Don't even breathe it, and just like that we were too close again. His hands trembled, hovering in the air like he wanted to grab me, to hold me, to prove that the claim had been real after all. My skin prickled with the memory of last night's madness, of how his voice had filled the room, echoing with possession and desire. You don't regret me, I said softly, searching his face. You regret him knowing. That made him flinch. And for a moment I felt the power tilt in my favor. It was intoxicating, dangerous. But even as I said it, I knew the truth. The danger wasn't just between him and me anymore. It had spilled into my marriage, seeped into the walls of my home. I could still feel the cold look in my husband's eyes when he asked me who he was. It wasn't anger, it was worse. It was betrayal sinking deep and silent, like a knife sliding under the skin without resistance. My lover reached for me then, just his fingertips brushing mine. But the contact sent a rush of heat up my arm, a reminder of why I had risked everything for him in the first place. That magnetic pull, that ache in my chest every time he said my name, that dangerous thrill of being wanted too much. Tell me you'll choose me, he murmured, voice low and raw. Tell me you won't let him win. But I couldn't. My throat locked around the words. Because for all the fire that burned between us, there was still the man who had built a life with me, the man who left sticky notes on the counter, the man whose silence was louder than any scream. I pulled back, shaking my head. You don't get to rush me, I whispered. You don't get to tear my life apart in one night and then come begging me to fix it the next morning. The pain in his eyes nearly undid me. He stepped closer anyway. So close I could smell him. Wood smoke and coffee and the faint trace of last night's cologne. His lips hovered near mine, not touching, just lingering in the unbearable space between temptation and ruin. I'm sorry, he said, voice trembling. But when I see you with him, when I know he still has you, it makes me crazy. I want the world to know you're mine. I can't keep pretending. For a heartbeat, I almost let him kiss me. My body leaned, my breath caught, every nerve screaming for release. But the echo of my husband's question, who is he, throbbed in my head like a warning bell. I pushed him back. Harder than I meant to. Go, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Before I do something I can't take back. He stared at me, hurt and desperate, then finally turned and walked away, his shadow shrinking down the sidewalk until it disappeared. I stood there in the doorway, trembling, torn in two. Behind me, the house still smelled faintly of garlic and wine, last night's dinner mocking me with its normalcy. Ahead of me was the street, empty now, but still echoing with the ghost of his footsteps. And somewhere between the two I was drowning. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. My husband hadn't said his last word. I thought avoiding him would make the fire burn out. That if I locked myself in the routines of marriage, the folded laundry, the clinking dishes, the quiet evenings where my husband barely looked at me, it would all fade like a bad dream. But desire doesn't die quietly. It waits, it festers, it sharpens itself on silence. And it was silence that finally broke me. 3 nights later, I found myself standing at the window long after my husband had gone to bed. The street outside glowed faintly under the flickering lamplight, the shadow stretching long and restless. And then, like something summoned from the depths of my longing, I saw him. My lover. He was standing across the street, half hidden, as if he had been pacing there for hours, waiting for me to appear. Our eyes met through the glass, and in that instant the world tilted. I didn't care that the curtains were open, that my husband was sleeping just down the hall. All I cared about was the unbearable pull in my chest, the heat rising in my skin. I shouldn't have gone outside. But my feet carried me anyway, quiet as sin, down the stairs, out the door, across the cold pavement, until I stood in front of him. Neither of us spoke at first. His eyes searched mine with a hunger that was equal parts apology and need. Then, in a voice so low it barely cut the night air, he said, "I can't stay away from you." I swallowed hard, the words catching in my throat. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he whispered, stepping closer, his breath warm against the cool air. "But I needed to see you. Just once more. Even if it's the last time." The last time. My body trembled at the thought. The finality of it twisted inside me. Both relief and devastation tangled together. I wanted to tell him to leave, to protect what little was left of my marriage. But the words that came out were nothing like what I rehearsed in my head. "I dreamed of you," I confessed, the syllables falling out before I could stop them. His face softened, the tension in his jaw breaking apart. He reached out, fingertips grazing my wrist so light I could almost pretend I imagined it. "What did you dream?" "That you touched me," I whispered, heat rushing to my cheeks. "That I let you." For a moment neither of us breathed. The night stretched thin around us, fragile, breakable. Then his hand closed gently around mine, firm and trembling at once. That single touch sent a wave through me, sharp and sweet, like the first sip of forbidden wine. "I think about it all the time," he said. "Every day, every night. What it would feel like to hold you without fear, to kiss you without guilt, to claim you without regret." The ache in his voice tore through me, and before I could stop myself I leaned forward. Just a fraction. Just enough for my forehead to brush his, for our lips to hover in the charged space between yes and no. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet, but it was a confession, a crack in the dam that could no longer hold back the flood. "I'm scared," I breathed. "So am I," he murmured. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." His words melted into me, and for one unbearable second I almost surrendered. I almost let him close the distance, almost let the night swallow us whole. But then, the sound, the sudden creak of the front door. I spun, heart lurching into my throat, and there he was. My husband. He stood in the doorway, barefoot, his face half shadowed by the porch light. His eyes flicked from me to the man still holding my hand, and the silence that followed was louder than any storm. I yanked my hand back as though burned, but the damage was done. The space between us was heavy with truth. "Go inside," my husband said finally, his voice low and sharp, cutting through the night air. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were locked on my lover, like a warning, like a dare. My lover didn't move. His chest rose and fell quickly, his fists clenched at his sides. For a heartbeat I thought he might challenge him, that he might repeat the claim he had thrown like a weapon days ago. But he didn't. He just looked at me, one last devastating glance, and then turned, his footsteps retreating into the darkness. I stood frozen, trembling, while my husband's gaze finally shifted to me. Cold, unreadable, inside. "Now." His tone left no room for argument. My body obeyed even as my soul shattered, following him back into the house that no longer felt like mine. And as the door closed behind us, I knew the night had changed everything, not because of what had happened, but because of what almost did. The silence inside the house was worse than the night air. He closed the door behind us with a slow, deliberate click, and for a moment I thought I could hear my own pulse echoing in the walls. My husband didn't speak, didn't even look at me, just walked past, steady, measured, until he reached the kitchen table. He sat, and then he waited. I stood near the doorway, trembling, my arms wrapped tight around myself. I wanted to explain, to beg, to throw words into the void until one of them softened the hard line of his jaw. But he didn't ask for words. His silence demanded truth. Finally, I broke. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I didn't go looking for him." "I never wanted—" "Don't," he cut in, his voice sharp, commanding. His eyes finally lifted to mine, and they burned with something I had never seen before. Not rage, not sorrow. Something deeper. Something unflinching. Don't waste breath pretending it was an accident. Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to keep standing. Then what do you want me to say? The truth. He leaned forward, his hands pressed flat against the table. Do you love him? The question sliced me open. My mouth moved, but nothing came out. Because the truth wasn't simple. I loved the way my husband had built a life with me, the way he had known me in every season. But I loved the way my lover made me feel alive, reckless, burning. How do you choose between air and fire? Between the hand that steadies you and the one that ignites you? I don't know, I choked. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, wasn't quite anger. That's the problem. You should. I sank into the chair across from him, my hands trembling on the wooden surface. What do you want me to do? His eyes narrowed. I want you to stop pretending you're the victim here. The words hit like a slap. And maybe that's what I needed. Something to shatter the illusion I'd been clinging to. Because he was right. I had let this grow. I had fed it with stolen glances, secret touches, whispered confessions under the cover of night. But before I could respond, his next words dropped like stones into the stillness. Call him, my head snapped up. What? Call him. Right now. Tell him it's over. My heart stuttered. The idea of severing it so abruptly, of ending something that had consumed me so completely, it felt like tearing my own skin. But the way my husband's gaze held mine, steady and unyielding, told me this wasn't a request. It was a demand. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I scrolled to his name, my lover's name, and my vision swam. I pressed the call button. It rang once, twice, then his voice, soft, aching. I was hoping you'd call. I froze. My husband's eyes drilled into me, his expression unreadable. Say it, he ordered quietly. My throat closed. I couldn't. My lover's voice, just the sound of it, unraveled me. Please, I whispered into the phone instead, my tears spilling freely now. Please don't make this harder. There was a pause on the other end. Then slowly he said, I won't give you up. Not like this. My husband's hand shot out, snatching the phone from me. He pressed it to his ear, his voice low, dangerous. She's not yours. She never was. My breath caught. My lover's voice, muffled but sharp, rose in protest, and my husband's jaw tightened as he listened. Then without another word he hung up. The silence that followed was unbearable. I buried my face in my hands, sobbing. And then I felt it, his hand heavy and warm resting on my shoulder, not gentle, not cruel, just there. I don't know if I can forgive you, he said, his voice finally breaking, softer now. But I know I won't lose you like this. Not to him. I lifted my head, tears streaking my face, and for the first time in days I saw not just anger in his eyes, but pain. Raw, human, unguarded pain, and that was when I broke completely. I reached for him, my fingers clutching the fabric of his shirt, pulling myself into him as though I could pour my guilt, my longing, my love into the spaces between us. He resisted at first, stiff in my arms, but then, slowly, he gave in. His arms wrapped around me, fierce and desperate, crushing me to him like he was afraid I might disappear. His breath was hot against my ear, ragged, uneven. And for the first time since this all began, I realized what we were truly fighting for wasn't revenge, or possession or victory. It was survival, the survival of us. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did he. We lay side by side in the dark, our bodies touching but our minds worlds apart. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. My lover's voice, raw with defiance. I won't give you up. Not like this, and then my husband's voice, firm and final. She's not yours. She never was. The truth was, I didn't feel like I belonged to anyone anymore. I felt like I was breaking in half, torn between two lives I had chosen for myself. Two versions of me I couldn't reconcile. When the first light of morning crept through the blinds, I rolled over to face him. My husband's eyes were already open, staring at the ceiling, tired and red. I can't live like this, I whispered. His gaze finally met mine. Neither can I. The words sat heavy between us like stones sinking into deep water. For a long moment I thought that was it, that this was the end, quiet and inevitable. But then he sat up, rubbing his hands over his face, and said something I never expected. Then tell me why. Why him? Why not me? My chest tightened. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I had too many. The rush of attention, the danger, the thrill of being seen as something more than a wife, more than predictable. My lover had looked at me like I was wildfire. My husband had looked at me like I was home, and I had chosen the fire. Tears slipped down my cheeks as I whispered the only truth I could bear. Because he made me feel alive. The words broke him. I saw it in the way his shoulders sagged, in the way his lips pressed into a hard line to keep from trembling. He turned away from me, staring at the pale morning light bleeding into the room. But then he said softly, "You think I don't want you? You think I don't ache for you? I thought you needed stability. I thought you wanted the kind of love that doesn't burn out." His confession gutted me, because I had wanted that. I still did. But I had also wanted the fire. I reached for his hand, tentative, unsure if he would pull away. He didn't. His fingers twitched under mine, then slowly curled around them. "Do you still love me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. "Yes, God help me, yes." The rawness of his answer undid me. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead against his shoulder, and the dam broke. I confessed everything, not just the nights, not just the lies, but the emptiness that had driven me there. The way I had felt unseen, unheard, fading into the background of my own life. He listened, really listened, and when I finally fell silent, exhausted, and hollow, he pulled me into his arms. His embrace wasn't gentle. It was fierce, desperate, almost punishing, but underneath it was something terrifyingly pure. The refusal to let go. And in that moment I realized something my lover could never give me. Fire burns bright, but it consumes. Home may be steady, may be quiet, may even be flawed, but it endures. The day passed in fragile truce. No laughter, no ease, but a strange, tentative closeness. Like two soldiers binding each other's wounds after a war. Every touch, every glance was heavy with both hurt and hope. That evening, as the sun dipped low, my phone buzzed. His name, my lover. My pulse spiked, my breath caught, but I didn't answer. My husband's eyes were on me, steady and watchful. I silenced the phone and slid it face down onto the table. His hand found mine. Not forcefully, not claiming, just, "There, choose," he said quietly. And I did. Not with words, not with some dramatic declaration, but with the simple act of letting the phone ring unanswered, of turning my body toward the man who had built a life with me and still, somehow, wanted to keep building. The regret in my lover's eyes that night, the desperation in his voice, the promises he made, I'll never forget them. But neither will I forget the way my husband held me that same night, raw and broken, whispering, "Don't leave me," into my hair. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a beginning, a fragile, dangerous, necessary beginning, and as I lay against him, feeling his heartbeat under my cheek, I knew one truth more terrifying than all the rest. I hadn't just been claimed. I had chosen. And that choice would define the rest of my life.